Hi everyone, my name's Robert and I have MG and I'm here to give you my top 10 tips for eating with MG or an autoimmune disease. First off, I need to tell you I'm not a doctor, I'm not a chef, I am not a nutritionist, but I have MG and I'm living it, and so are you. So we know what affects our body by what we eat. We certainly have experienced what affects our body from medicines that we've taken, whether that's an infusion or plasmapheresis, CellCept, methadone, prednisone. Those things have an effect on our body. We know that. So does food. But you need to individualize that because remember, we're snowflakes. There is loads of information out there, certainly diets. You need to find what works best for your body and listen to your body as you then formulate an eating plan for yourself. So that's number one, is you need to individualize this and don't just take something off the internet or somebody else's plan. Find the plan that works best for you. That's number one. Number two, real simple. You have to do something. We're not really going to talk about food because we're going to talk about behavior. Matter of fact, what you eat is pointless if you don't change your behavior in what you eat. So you have to do something. You have to realize that what you eat does affect your immune system. That needs to be the premise. And then you have to change what you eat. Now, that depends upon where you are right now. That might be a little change for some people. It may be a whole lot. Some of you may ask, do I have to eat broccoli and vegetables and fish, etc., a lot of salads? And yeah, you probably are going to have to eat some of that because it's better for you. This is not an excuse to justify continuing to eat what I want to eat or all the good stuff or to make everything taste like a dessert. You're going to have to change. If you don't want to change, stop the video. I don't care for a lot of those vegetables, but I eat them because I know that it does my body good. It helps my immune system. Think about this. We don't have any problem with our neurologist tells us to take prednisone or take CellCept or get IVIG or plasmapheresis, putting those things in our body because we know that that's going to help us get better. By the same token, food is the same thing. So if we don't have any problem from the medicine side, we should not have any problem from the food side. We don't even know what these products are. We know what these are. So let's just make the conscious change that we are going to change somehow. And that's number two. And so the third point is it needs to be permanent. Get rid of the word diet. Diet means temporary, certainly in the American lexicon. That means deny myself the foods I really like for a certain amount of time, then I achieve a certain weight or goal, and then I can go back to eating those foods and we repeat the cycle. In other words, you're just going to eat healthy. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that is, but you need to make it permanent. So yes, diet affects your immune system. You need to do something. And then you need to make that permanent. Or is this? It's the KISS method. You've heard that before, KISS. Keep it simple. You could fill in the last S for you. Maybe Sunny, Sweetheart, whatever you want to do. Just keep it simple. And there are a couple subpoints with that. The first one is the more complex you make it, the easier it's going to be to let yourself down. And you might beat yourself up over it. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't weigh my food today, and I didn't count the ratio of carbs to calories to fat to protein to sugar. I didn't follow the keto or the paleo or the Whole30 or the grain-free or the gluten-free. Stop. Just keep it simple. And know that, yes, you may let yourself down, and that's okay. I'm not saying that's an excuse to just chuck the diet because it's the holidays. You need to plan for that. But I went on a short vacation into my son's wedding in New Orleans. I ate some beignets there. And that's okay. Because when I got back, I center what I eat around my day-to-day routine where I live, and you should too, and that's right here in San Angelo, Texas. So if you center what you eat around your daily activity in your home, that's where you're well off. And if you do sort of goof up on a holiday, don't beat yourself up over it. That's okay. Just remember we're not perfect, and make sure that you come back and sort of reset yourself. And the next one, number 5, is your diet is not about you. What started mine, I had a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis along with my MG. My joints were killing me. I felt like an 85-year-old man, and here I'm in my late 50s. It turned out to be a false positive, but still my joints were aching from head to toe, and I knew I needed to change what I ate to help my inflammation. And my wife, I'm so grateful she went right along with me. I went extreme vegetarian. Now, I'm not that now, but I still tend to lean that way. But she ate what I ate. And now we don't do that so much. I don't demand that if we go to a place with my family that we eat where only I can eat, or that the menu has to be developed just for what I eat. I can adjust. You need to find the balance. What you eat does not revolve around you, especially if you have family and friends that eat differently. They may be supportive, they may be not supportive. You can still find a way to make that work. It's not always about you. Point number 6, and this is the main point of the entire video, eat whole foods. I'm not an advertisement for the food chain that has the same words in there. By whole foods, I mean non-processed foods. Now, don't get technical, because everything in the grocery store is really a processed food of some sort, and that's okay. It went through a process to get there. That's why we have really one of the safest food supplies. We have the more abundant choices than any place on the planet. God bless America. I'm so thankful for that. But what do I mean by whole foods or non-processed foods? Let me give you a couple examples. This is something that I eat. Pitted medjool dates. Yeah, it's in plastic, and I'm good with that. It went through a process to get here. This helps preserve it, but it only has one ingredient, pitted medjool dates. That's why it's more of a whole food. We all know what these are. It's a package within a package. That's a process right there. 15 ingredients. I counted it. Much more processed food than the dates. It's not as good for you. You're going, wait a minute, this is common sense. Yes, it is. And yes, fruits and vegetables are just as good for you as they always have been. This is your baseline. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a vegetarian, but you can get protein here, very little process. I'm going to be honest. I still eat meat, but I'm very careful about it. I start with my baseline of fruits and vegetables. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Is it more expensive to eat non-processed whole foods? Yeah, it is. I'm not going to lie to you. People say, oh, I spent $40 and look at all I bought. Yeah, but it's not going to last very long. And if you don't eat it right away, it spoils quicker. So you have to be more thoughtful, and you have to plan ahead before you go to the grocery store, because if it's not prepackaged, this is going to last a long time. This is not, but this is better for you. So start here, okay? Sort of a quick side point, and this is number 7 before we go on to number 8. Number 7 is supplements. Remember, just think of that word itself, what it means. That means in addition to, that's a supplement. Supplant is in place of. Oftentimes we get those confused. We think we can take supplements to supplant something. Well, I don't want to eat vegetables, so I'm going to buy this superfood over here in place of that. No. Start with the nutrition and base that upon what you eat, and then supplement. Now, we all probably take some supplements, and I do as well. For example, here's vitamin D. You probably take some vitamins and calcium, etc., and that's okay. But again, that's in addition to what you eat. That's not in place of. That's a whole separate video on the supplements. Again, you need to individualize that, and you can take some, but don't take that in place of quality food. Here's number 8. Focus on what you plan to eat and what you can eat, not what you can't. Focus on what you can eat and not what you can't. You remember the old food pyramid? Well, if you're my age, it looked a little different back in the 70s, and I've put a picture up there for you. You had the 4 food groups. At the bottom were your breads, your grains, your carbohydrates. Then the second tier, you can see it, those were your fruits and vegetables. And then your third tier, those were your proteins, your meats. And then the top tier, I believe, with the sugars. You want to avoid those. I have my own Robert Rumpf tier or food pyramid, so to speak. And at the baseline of that is what you can always eat, and that's fruits and vegetables, whole foods, what you can always have. The second tier is a maybe, and that's where you individualize it. Maybe I eat a little fish, salmon, maybe a steak, maybe it's some dairy, maybe it's eggs. That depends upon you. You need to determine what that maybe is for you. For me, it's some meat, and I do eat all of those. But again, that's a more thoughtful process. You can always have things on the bottom. The second one is maybe I can eat this. And the third is what I call a splurge. And that's something that maybe it's planned, maybe it's prepared, but it's a splurge. You got to be careful about the splurge because we tend to think, well, I only splurge on ice cream once a week, or a ribeye once a week, or eat ribs once a week, or I splurge on that bacon and French toast. And we end up splurging something every single day. We might eat some healthy food, but then we splurge and it sort of balances each other out. A splurge should be, again, minimal, but that's kind of an individual thing. I can just share with you, my wife and I are kind of at the point we like to go on the weekend once a week and have a little ice cream, maybe a dip cone, maybe a blizzard. Probably not the best for you, but that's something that we enjoy doing. I call that a splurge for me. You may not want to splurge on that, but again, it's timed, it's thought out, and you're aware of it. And again, it's near the top, so it's minimal, it's less. And then the top one is the exception. I mean, it's just a rarity. Maybe it's a special event. I talked about my wedding in New Orleans where I ate some beignets. That's going to be a rarity. That's an exception. Splurge an exception. Again, that's a minimal. So that's the Robert Rump food pyramid. Always, maybe, splurge, and then the exception foods. And remember, foods and your medicine are like four wheels on a car. They have to all make contact with the ground and go in tandem in order for you to make progress. Yeah, it would be best if we didn't have to do any meds, and I understand that, and maybe you're at that point or close to that point, but you don't want to compromise that, especially if it's going to compromise your MG and exacerbate your symptoms. So those two work in tandem together. Let's go on to the next point. Point number 9 is just 3 words: give it time. You have to give it time. You're not going to have results overnight, just like your MG meds. You didn't feel that instantaneously. It took a while for that cell set to take root. Even IVIG plasmapheresis, sometimes that takes a while. Remember, it's a slow crawl and a slow recovery from MG. The same thing is true of what you eat. You're not going to feel it overnight. That's why your behavior is the most important thing. And patience is the name of the game. Slow and steady wins the race. And number 10, just what do I eat when I go to the grocery store? What do I look at? I'll tell you one ingredient I do look at, that is grams of sugar. I try and keep it under 25 grams. That's just a good figure per day. And that's hard to do. Some cereals have 26, 30 grams of sugar in one serving. So if it has more than 10 grams, I try and avoid it. So I do look at grams of sugar. That's an individualized thing for me. I certainly shop in the produce aisle and I eat fruits and vegetables every day, especially the fruits: grapes, bananas, blueberries, strawberries, all of those things. I try and eat a lot of healthy greens every day, a lot of green salads. I'm not a big fan of green vegetables, green beans, broccoli, but I eat them. Asparagus, I haven't eaten in years. I've gone back to eating it. Brussels sprouts, I've hated since I was a kid. I'm going to be honest, but I've gone back to eating some of that. And you know what? I feel a lot better after I eat vegetables. You can make a whole meal out of it. I've learned that the spice rack is your friend. I use a lot of rice or whole grain rice, even quinoa as a base. And then you can saute whatever vegetables you want, put that together. That can be an entire meal. I like beans. That's a good protein. You can add that to it and spice it up and just experiment with that. Again, those are things that you can use an entire meal. When I've done that, what I avoid are all the sweet breads, the heavy yeasty stuff. A lot. You never see a doctor recommending, you know what, you need to eat chicken fried steak and pecan pie and honey buns as your new diet. Never happens. Those things are delicious. But yeah, it's the stuff that I was talking about formerly. That's what you need to go to and try and make that the staple of what you eat. And you are going to feel better when you do that. Another thing that I like to do is buy the pre-cut vegetables. I learned when I started eating a lot of vegetables and buying them fresh, which is great. We go to the farmer's market and get a lot of those. There's a lot of prep time there and planning. I just like to get them already in the package where they're cut for me. It's a little more expensive. I get that if you can't afford that. But that's a little tip that I want to pass along, is if you can just have it ready for you, because otherwise we tend to avoid it if we have to do a lot of prep. I'm going to share one recipe with you, and this is something that I like. It's a carrot cake power bite. Carrots, almond butter, almond meal, and dates. That's it. And yeah, there's a little icing on top. So see, I splurge it, add a little cinnamon, a little nutmeg, a few spices. It's gluten-free, it's paleo, a lot of protein. This is something that's very simple. I don't want to get into a lot of recipes because you have the internet, and this video is not about sharing recipes. It's really about talking the behavior that you need. Side note on sugars, yes, fruits do have natural sugars, but it's not the same as the refined processed sugar like in a candy bar. The proof of that for me is look at my glucose level. I put the chart right there. It went down when I just ate whole fruits. And yes, my glucose level's gone up a tiny bit, but I haven't cut out all sugar in what I eat. But what I try to avoid and what I read on the labels is after sugars, there's included added sugars, and that's that refined processed sugar that you want to try and avoid. Only as a follower of Christ, life is short. We will all return to our Creator one day. And you may say, well, why not just eat what I want and die happy? And I understand that. But I choose to eat healthy, and here's why. Because I want to be the best possible person for my wife and family, my kids and grandkids. And that's why I do it. Because as an MG, it's a new normal, and there's so many things that I can't do anymore, but the things that I can do, I want to be my best for my family. That's a great reason to eat healthy. And remember, at the end of the day, we all share three things. We all goof up, we sin, we all die, and what year is it? Where did that number come from? We all keep time by Jesus Christ. So he conquered sin, he conquered death, he resurrected from the dead to give us hope for a new life, for eternity with him. That's what life is all about. In the meantime, stay well, eat healthy, and be blessed.